Hi, and welcome back to Grade 8 Math. This is Section 1, Lesson 1, and the second video in this lesson. This is Ms. Clemens-Brenton, and in this video, we will look at the advantages and disadvantages of various types of graphs. While it is beneficial to use a graph to display information, not all graphs are created equal. Different graphs provide different information and display certain types of data better. One type of graph commonly used is the circle graph. Circle graphs are used to display discrete data. Some advantages include: they compare parts to the whole. They show data as a percent. The size of the sectors can be easily compared. They are visually appealing. As you can see, this circle graph uses a variety of eye-catching colors. Disadvantages include: they don't show the actual numbers in each category. It can be difficult to draw since you have to calculate the angle of each sector and use a protractor to draw the graph. The data must have a part-to-whole relationship. It only works well for a small number of categories. If there are too many categories, then the graph starts to get congested. And it can be difficult to compare two sets of data. Another type of graph used to represent data are pictographs. Pictographs are also used to display discrete data. Some advantages of pictographs include: they are useful for small data values. The length of the columns or rows can make it easy to compare the data. When I look at this graph, I can easily see that Layla has played the most games, and Kira has played the least number of games. The subject of the graph is apparent from the symbol. So when I look at this graph, the number of games played, obviously we're talking about soccer because the graph uses a soccer ball. They are visually appealing. These types of graphs certainly catch your eye. And the total number can be calculated. It would take a little more time, but I can calculate the total in each column. Some disadvantages include: it can be difficult to draw partial symbols, and therefore the accuracy may be challenging. In this case, drawing a half or a quarter of a soccer ball is not too bad, but depending on the symbol being used, it can be much more challenging. A lot of symbols on the graph makes it difficult to read. It does not show percents. The numbers in the categories are not apparent. They have to be tallied up. And it's best for a small number of categories. Another type of graph that can be used to display discrete data is the bar graph. Some advantages of a bar graph include: it shows the number of items in each category, so I should be able to look at my bar graph and read the number in each category directly from the graph. We can easily see the range in data and identify minimum and maximum values. It's easy to draw and fairly easy to read. We can easily compare data, and it's visually appealing. The use of color certainly does that. And we can calculate the total number. So I could read the total for each bar off of my graph, add those together to get the total number in the data set. Some disadvantages are: it may be difficult to read accurately depending on the scale and where the bar lines end. So looking at this particular graph, it's difficult, for example, to read soccer. I know that it's somewhere a little bit less than 45, but I'm not quite sure where. It cannot be used for interpolation or extrapolation, which means we cannot estimate in between or beyond the values given. And it does not show percents. Double bar graphs are very similar to bar graphs. They also display discrete data, and the advantages and disadvantages are the same. The only extra advantage with a double bar graph is that it directly compares multiple sets of data. So two or more sets of data can be displayed on the same graph. Line graphs are the only graphs that we're going to look at that display continuous data. Remember, continuous data is measurable data, so we can find any point on a graph. Some advantages of line graphs include: shows change over time. We can easily see trends in data. They can be used to estimate values between and beyond data points. They are easy to draw. And we can easily compare multiple sets of data on the same graph. Some disadvantages include: it may be difficult to read accurately depending on the scale. When I look at this graph, some of those points are pretty difficult to determine considering the scale on the graph. Maybe difficult to compare categories. It does not show percents, and it is not very visually appealing. Now that we've identified the advantages and disadvantages of various graphs, we will use this information to analyze graphs and to choose graphs for particular situations. Please proceed to the next video for this lesson.